7 in total, but we just let 3.
Okay.
7 bedrooms, but we only let 3.
7 bedrooms for the castle. It's 2 stories?
3.
3 stories.
Mm-hmm.
In Scotland. Where in Scotland?
In Dalbeattie.
Dalbeattie. Okay, so for those who know, my brother's been. It was like one of his like super big childhood dreams was to go to Scotland. He's got the red hair and everything for it. So that's cool. I'll have to ask him if he went there or knows where that's at. Okay, and so you just hosted a retreat this weekend for 4 women who came out. What'd you guys do at the retreat?
Well, I give them a project to do. So they have a specific project that they pick out of 3 while they're here.
Fine.
They paint a brick in my garden wall to leave their mark on the place. And then they choose the types of creativity. They also create a 4-foot mind map for their plan and their vision and go away with a 12-week plan.
I love that. It was so fun talking to you in the pre-show. It's been what, 2 months now? 1 month?
Yeah. Be about that.
It feels like 2 weeks ago, but life just doing so many great things.
Busy.
But yeah, that's okay. And I remember seeing pictures. I hope we make sure to do it justice and show exactly like what's going on in the castle, how you're going about helping people with their visions. I was just fascinated with how you've brought your own story to life. So we'll dive into that in a minute. For the visionaries who are listening, who are here early, what are 3 resources that you recommend visionaries or entrepreneurs, leaders pick up? This could be a book, this could be a movie, this could be your own resources. What are 3 you recommend?
I would recommend, well, first of all, one of the earliest things that I watched and studied was The Magnificent Seven, the film. And the leadership in there is fascinating, and the relationships. And I've always kind of felt that was really inspiring for me.
Yes, The Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen it, so now I got to see it.
It's an old film, but it's one of the best examples of leadership.
I love it.
And
the older the better.
Yeah, and I'm a bit of a geek as well, and I absolutely love Star Trek in every way, shape, or form. But I love Janeway in Voyager, and I think she is a fantastic leader. And for female visionaries and leaders, I think Star Trek Voyager is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's another great reference, because there's so many things you can visually learn, right? Yeah. And the tone, the cadence, the way they interact, and there's stress and pressure involved in those story type dynamics. That's great. What else?
Yeah.
What's the thing?
I think what I would also, I would love to recommend one of my resources, because I do an annual vision and goal setting workshop, which is free. It then runs as a freebie for a year. So that's on my website, mandynicholson.co.uk.
Excellent. We might take some time later on to actually dive in deeper on that, ask some questions about it. I'd love to learn more, and see what we can anticipate from the backside of that. But we're going to put that link in the action steps. In fact, if you want to just drop it in the comments or the private chat, we can put that live on the show right now. We'll work on that while we jump into the break for just a minute, everybody. And stick around. We've got Mandy Nicholson on, who literally bought a castle in Scotland and runs creative retreats. Like, this is one of the most unique visions we've ever had. So we'll be right back. All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We'll be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up? Welcome in to Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business, and I'm excited to have Mandy Nicholson on today. We've got a castle owner. She has a 3-story castle in Scotland, and that is just fascinating to me and amazing. We're going to talk about how she got there. Why would you buy it? Well, of course, like, who wouldn't buy a castle if you had the opportunity to. So again, I'm fascinated by it. I'm also fascinated with how she's utilizing that to help other visionaries move their visions forward. That's what the show's all about, for crying out loud. So before we dive into Mandy's story fully and we hear about her leadership skills and more and learn more from than we already got out of the 3 resources, I want to talk about some resources that have been a big, huge help to me, and that I know are helping the world out there too. One of them is The Lost Spot with Melissa Gray. So Melissa Gray, and I'm super honest about this. I almost didn't do the show with Melissa because I didn't want a lawyer on my show. It's like, man, attorneys are always pretentious and they're always like, they condescend at you and then you never feel good after talking to them. And that was an overgeneralization. And I'm so glad that we made space for Melissa to come on because she's a nurturer who understands that legal does not have to be complicated. And since since being on our show, she then became a client. And then she became such a great client, we became strategic partners. And as strategic partners, I call her my CLO now. And I didn't know what that was before. I was like, wow, that was a chief legal officer position. I was like, man, I hadn't considered the fact that businesses need that. Duh. And I say duh because that is like the nature of entrepreneurship. When you reach the wisdom of understanding entrepreneurship is hard and there's a lot of moving elements, every day kind of becomes like, wow, I didn't know that either. And you never run out of those opportunities as we grow. So if you don't have legal counsel, I highly recommend that you start interviewing people to see who is going to be there to protect your brand when you face $20,000 trademark lawsuit like I did. We won that, but we also lost $20,000 trying to win it. So those are, again, elements that I don't want any of you to go through, but I also know in this world you will face challenges as you build your brand. Then there's Recovery Unplugged. They're not a client. Never paid me anything for the sponsorship. I just love what Andrew Sosin has built with Recovery Unplugged because I know how many people out there struggle with addictions, and I know what it feels like to not feel like I belong. And that's one of the big reasons why people end up escaping life, looking for substances that fill in the gaps and bridge the gaps. So if you know somebody who is struggling with an addiction, I highly recommend calling their hotline and getting some professional advice on how to help that person. While we're going about building our visions and doing all the fun things in life, I think we should also take time to look at how can we help and support those who are in our life, as well as for some of those entrepreneurs out there who are very much dealing with addictive habits of their own. We do have those vices as entrepreneurs. None of us are too good to get help. So there's that program. Then there's the Water Project. I will never run the show without talking about something like the Water Project. Why? Because I've never had to worry about where I was going to get my next cup of water in my life. I've been thirsty, but not for very long. There are millions of people in this world who do not even have access to that basic resource. And while that's, that can be heartbreaking, it's also an opportunity for us to step up and help. What I love about the Water Project is when you donate to one of those causes, you actually get to see the outcome. You get to see the fulfillment of what it was that you gave. And seeing kids and families celebrate water like my kids celebrate Christmas, once again, while it can be a very emotional experience, it can also be one that you can choose to allow to uplift you, knowing that you just made an impact that is probably going to affect and help generations of individuals. If you're not in the position to give back financially, that's okay. You might know somebody that could give back to this, or you might just share this with your friends in general and say, you know what, maybe we could all do a little bit more in relation to helping the world. If somebody particular came to mind, I'm telling you that is a very important prompting, somebody that you can tag, and you never know. They may just have a ripple effect of sharing it. It may not impact them in a way that's tangible at all, but those types of promptings that you receive are important in life. And I do hope that you share that project because, again, there are people with much greater needs than you and I have who don't even have the ability to listen to this show, but do have the need for water. So as we move further, I'm going to bring Mandy back on stage. We're going to dive right into her vision. Mandy, it is my honor to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I got to dive right in. What is the vision for those that you serve?
The vision that for those that I serve is to get themselves off the poverty line and be taken seriously as artists and creatives, because we have that undercurrent, that underlying belief that there's the poor artist, the starving artist in society, and their vision isn't millionaire or, you know, it's just to earn enough.
Yes. So getting them, that is their vision. You said
Yeah.
it's just to earn enough. And you're wanting to take them where? Let's dive into the further side of that, because I'm glad you set the base, because it's hard to move to where we want to go if we don't know where we're at right now.
Hmm. Well, exactly. And a lot of the ladies that come my way struggle to see further than I just want to earn this. And it's my job to help them to think bigger. And that is an awesome thing to see and watch happening right in front of your eyes.
That's huge. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I love plant analogies. I love science, right?
Hmm.
Because I can predict the result of most scientific realities. So imagine giving your plant just enough water not to kill it.
Hmm.
That's not farming. Like, that's not what you do. You need to give it more,
Yeah.
not drown it, but you need to give it more than it needs so that you don't risk killing that plant. Like, that's not a green thumb strategy. So
No.
we do that to ourselves the exact way that you said it. We were saying, well, I just need this. And we get so addicted to the need that we limit ourselves from accepting what's
Hmm.
beyond that. So let's dive even further down that path. So somebody who's moving from, I just need this to, okay, there's more for me. Where do we go from there?
It's funny because I had an example of that this very weekend with one of my ladies who helped herself through her mental health struggles by finding creativity and then wanted to help other people. And that's when she came to me. And we got her set up with a community interest company, which is, you know, charity based, but also can earn income. And she got that to a really good place in a year. And then she's come on a retreat here. And I've said, right, okay, what's next? What's bigger than this? What's bigger than what you're doing that you can't even imagine at the moment that we can get you leaving here with? And she's left with a much bigger vision of, like, how big is community? How can I go bigger? What steps can I take? Can I get the big lottery fund here? And she's, you know, she's already had £10,000 from the lottery. I said, what about the big lottery fund? What about something really, really big? So that's what she's gone away with. So it's pushing the boundaries of what, when we think we're there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love that. And we're gonna dive in because you have that nurturing nature where you're making space for those who are figuring it out. And
Hmm.
what drives me crazy, like what drives me absolutely crazy, is the inferior coach. And I'm talking about some really big leaders. I'm talking,
Hmm.
and I'm not talking about coaches. I'm talking about consultants. I'm talking about therapists, etc. And there's so many leaders out there right now. I'm telling you, if you meet a leader tomorrow or today, or if you're guilty of doing this, the good news is you can change right away. If you're that one who's saying, oh, there's all these super young life coaches out in the market. What do they know about life? Or they say, oh, there's so many coaches flooding the market that don't know what they're doing. Uh, what you're revealing is your own inferiority complex,
Hmm.
that you feel unsafe, that you're in or you're taking advantage of a market, because trying to propose that this false sense of authority that you are the qualified and they are not. No, like, we're all learning along this path. So I love that you acknowledge that you know she was going through something difficult, therefore
Hmm.
she solved her problem,
Hmm.
and she saw the opportunity to learn how to help others.
Hmm.
That's leadership to me at its absolute best. Okay, do you mind? You can feel free to combat what I said about inferiority complex and elite coaches, elites that act like that, or double down.
No, I think there's always questionable people in every single area of life, isn't there?
Mhm.
But it's only questionable based on your perception of the world. If you accept that everybody's got something to offer, I have worked with a coach who really couldn't even get me, but still taught me how I didn't want to do things. And you've got to be
Mhm.
able to accept that and be able to learn from that, haven't you?
Have an opportunity to, and that's the big reality there. So I wish that more leaders, instead of burning people who are learning along the way and condescending at those who are working on becoming great, would be more inviting like you to create a stage for
Mhm.
others to find success and to build up. So let's dive into your vision, Mandy. What do you see for yourself on the horizon?
Um, yeah, that's a big question because I've done so much in the last few years with actually getting here. So I see me just cementing what I'm doing and continuing to help people at the minute. I don't see anything other than what am I doing for retirement? Do I want a little cottage on the side of a loch where I write books and I paint and I, really take some time for me and I travel the world and I've got a bucket list, very long bucket list of all the art galleries I still haven't seen.
Mm,
So there's kind of that now that's appearing on my vision. I'm not frightened to change my vision, not frightened to
that's right.
completely. Who knows what's going to come up in the next couple of years? If there's one thing I've learned over the last 10 years is vision changes.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't matter. Like if I'm looking at you, I have one vision, literally, again, back to the science. And if I turn around, I'm looking at LeBron James and a guitar, right?
Yeah,
So vision is that malleable and we get to choose. We can be intentional about
yeah,
choosing where do we focus our vision? What do we want? And it is not wrong. In fact, everything is right about positive change.
yeah.
So that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Let's dive into a darker subject. What is the worst leadership experience that you've ever had?
Worst leadership experience. I suppose that was when I was starting out as a young manager in retail. I was the only female manager, and then I became the best in the company, and then I was the only female divisional executive. And the worst leadership experience I would say that sticks in my memory was coming back from maternity leave, and I was still breastfeeding my baby, and my line manager asked me how much longer I would be doing that for, because I would need to stop away for meetings and things. And that for me was probably, it sticks so much in my memory of, you know what, I'm the only female divisional executive here. I was the only female manager for a decade. And what
It
have I
sounds
got
like
to
there was
do?
some cadence and tone baked into that, though. It
Yes.
sounds
Oh,
like there
yeah.
wasn't like a nurturing, like, "Hey, I want
No,
to understand." It was a
no.
very like,
It was a how long are you going to be doing this for? It's an irritant. Yeah.
"Oh
One.
man, yeah." That it's not the. There are extremes, of course. There's violence, on the opposite path of like, whoa, this is horrific leadership, which is really just horrific force. It is. I don't think there's leadership involved in that. Usually, like you talked about, the worst leadership is the subtle mistake, of revealing that true dark character, of like, I'm not actually here for the right reasons. I'm not actually doing things in a way that honors the people that I serve. We at First Class Business, our rally cry now is a full appreciation for family and personal well-being in the workplace.
Mhm.
And that preposition is very intentional. Like in not outside of, not, oh yeah, my kids are separate, but if they walk in, I'm gonna freak out and panic. No, no, no.
No,
Like
no.
my kids are welcome in my business. Your kids are welcome
Yeah.
in my business. Your well-being, Matt, like that type of full appreciation, it's sorely missing in the world of business, even today. And there are a lot of great leaders who are working on that. So I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of people are going to benefit from knowing that, even just knowing the story and realizing like, oh wow, maybe I haven't made space for that yet or thought about it.
Mhm.
Very powerful. What is your best leadership experience that you've ever had?
Um, I suppose my best leadership experience would be one of my direct line managers, called Alan Rowe. He was amazing. He was my divisional executive. He brought me from Scotland to England as a store manager and took a real risk on me, I suppose. Um, And his leadership was subtle and encouraging and humorous. He brought me into his office once and said, "Sit down." And I was like, "Okay." And he said, "I thought you said you were good with stock results. You sold yourself to me." And I said, "I am." He said, "Well, I've got your stock result in front of me." I was like, "Okay." And he said, it's the best in the country. So you I was like, well, he just had that about him, and he taught me so much. And he taught me to believe in myself, because I was working in a place of misogyny, and he just didn't like that, and he supported me 100%. And he's the reason, I suppose, I am the leader I am today.
Oh, that's amazing. And that positive reinforcement, I guess there's people out there who aren't in tune with the love language of affirmations, right? And that's not their love language. They don't. My mom hates it, actually. She doesn't want to hear it. She wants to see it. That's how she is. And I'm the opposite. I gotta hear it. Or
Yeah.
like, the service doesn't do it for me. I'm like, like bad people do things for people all the time. So there's a important reality there that if we don't, as leaders, take the time to recognize how our team members feel appreciated, feel understood, feel valued, then we can often miss out on the opportunity to even level them up and help them understand, like, whoa, I am appreciated here. And that usually leads to even better results. So you are a testament of that for Alan's sake. The hardest question I ask, if this were the last opportunity, you didn't have any opportunities after this to share a powerful lesson with the world, specifically with visionaries, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
That no matter how bad you think it is, there is always a way. And that's kind of the origin of my story, where I was this great leader and successful in retail and earning six figures and company car. And then within months, I wasn't. I was at rock bottom, a single mum living in social housing with no money. And you have a choice. You choose to accept your lot in life and not do anything, or you choose to change it. And you can change anything, anytime.
Wow. And I love that there's a reflection of your quote there that also applies, and you acknowledge that too. So no matter how bad you think it is, there's always a way. And no matter how good it is, it can also all be stripped away.
Away.
We don't control the external outcomes as much as we love to think we do. And it scares me for people who think they've got that figured out, that external outcome. I'm like, go ahead. You got to
Yeah, no, because I think we make decisions all the time, don't we? And you've got to live and die by your decisions. And I made decisions to help people I loved and who I thought loved me. And that was my downfall. The very thing that most of us do all the time can be our downfall. And it sneaks up on you.
Absolutely. So as we get ready to dive in to buying the Scottish castle, running these creative retreats, and let's talk about that origin story. Where did the desire come from? How did you do it? And what happened along the way? Because that story, it hit me.
It's a big story. Hold on to your seats.
Yep.
So in 2009, I did lose everything. It started with a car crash, and over 12 months, I had and experienced a series of unfortunate events. That later on became the content for my first book, The Life I Won. But in that year, it was all those things on that list of the top 10 worst things that can happen to you, all in 12 months. All of them happened to me. And it just seemed relentless.
Do you mind shedding a little light? What were some of those things that happened?
So it started with a car crash, which gave me a lot of physical injuries. And because I wasn't in my six-figure job, because I was injured and in hospital and off for a while, you are no longer of value when you are not there. So I lost my job, found out my husband was having an affair, my marriage ended. My son was diagnosed with autism. My dad died, diagnosed with cancer, and died within 47 days. so it was, my sister had been struggling with her mental health and got the business that we were joint partners in into so much debt, over £100,000 worth of debt, that we had to go bankrupt. So it was coming up to Christmas and I was a bankrupt single mum, lost my dad, lost my job, and my landlord came and made me homeless. And I was literally given 60 days notice to move. So it just ended up the year. It was hilarious, really, when I look back at it, but it wasn't at the time. So I ended up in social housing with £30 in my bank account and nothing but what I had in my brain. And that's enough. And I think that was 2009. And I very, very quickly created a cleaning business. I was in Northumberland in the UK, and it's a high holiday destination. I just created a cleaning business because I could do it with nothing but my Hoover, a few cloths, and a bit of cleaning material. And within 3 days, I had 3 clients. Within 3 weeks, I was fully booked. And within 3 months, I was hiring. And that was from someone who was at rock bottom. And you can always do something. I can clean houses. I was not too proud to go and clean somebody else's toilet.
Good for you.
And that cleaning business led me to other things along the way. And in 2019, 10 years later, along the way, I'd met my soulmate, Gary, who was wonderful. Sold on and done 2 more businesses. And we were ready to buy our dream home. And he kind of just said to me, stop talking about your creative business and just do it, Mandy. So I had to seriously put some effort into creating this business that I'd believed could never make any money. And he pushed me towards that. So by the end of 2019, I'd written a book, launched my creative business, and bought our dream home. Cash. So I'd gone from £30 in my bank account to buying
I got a standing ovation that for a minute. Go ahead.
Where did that come from? Right, yeah. So we bought the dream home for cash, and it was coming into 2020. We were very happy there, and then COVID hit in March, didn't it? My business was doing well, but COVID hit, and Gary was a sick man. He had had a lung transplant like 10 years earlier because he was born with cystic fibrosis and his immune system was really compromised. So when COVID hit, it was really risky time for him. And I lost him at the end of April 2020. He died on the 29th of April. I was with him. I'm very grateful for being there when he died and passed away. But when we'd moved into the dream home, I'd kind of gone, what's next? Let's put a castle on my vision board, because I'd love to have a castle in Scotland and I'd love to run creative retreats. And that's the next big vision. Now we've got all of this. That's the next big vision. I didn't know at that point I was going to lose Gary. Yeah. I thought we'd be doing it together. So there was probably about 10 months of us healing as a family, me and my 2 children. And then I thought, you know what? I should just move to Scotland and make that dream happen. Let's just move to Scotland, buy a house, and I'll get the money for the castle. And as we were viewing properties, the universe, something, put this in front of me, this miniature version of the castle that I had on my vision board. It wasn't a little bit like it. It was a lot like it, but a miniature version. The castle on my vision board was in on the other side of the country, and it was £3 million, and I didn't have £3 million, but I had some money and I'd sold the house. So yeah, this is an ex-bank and it looks a bit castle-like. So I call it my mini castle, over 3 floors. The bank manager used to live here, which is quite a grand position in the community in Scotland at one point.
Yeah.
And it was a wreck. And I've renovated it. So it gave me purpose. I had a project. It was almost like it was put in front of me for all those reasons. And I said, yes, let's do it. So that's what we did. lived in a little flat along the high street for about 6 months while I renovated the property. And I opened the doors for retreats in March 2021.
Wow, that's amazing. That
Yeah.
is, I'm amazed and excited and appreciating the ending of that story, and at the same time, like, wow, like what an amazing amount of difficult sacrifices too that could have derailed you, could have stopped you, could have been easy excuses to not do this, to not move forward, and yet you did. What's the secret to that?
I suppose, when I look back at it, I almost look at those series of unfortunate events as a lesson that I needed to learn to ready myself for that next big lesson. So when I lost Gary, I knew there was going to be a way to come back from that because I'd come back from all of that previously. So it's almost like the worst happened once so that I could cope with it the second time. And it is about always thinking Gary would have hated me to have not continued to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been disappointed in me. So I owed it to him as well as myself to keep on going.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's
and all the women out there that needed me, and I knew they were there.
that too. So you had your purpose, you had your drive, you're in tune with it, you're living it, and it is a superpower. I have a very irreverent version of this is almost embarrassing to admit to, but story along that path. When the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, right, when he died,
Yeah.
and I loved his show.
So did
I
I.
absolutely loved watching his show. And it's like, I felt like I really knew his personality, you know? I was probably 17 at the time, and there was a Halloween party. So I was a giant stingray. And I convinced a friend to be Steve. And we
Right.
went, and I knew that if Steve was watching,
You'd
he
be
would
like,
be so happy and so grateful that I honored his. And oh my goodness, we did win most creative costume, but I probably offended more people in the process of creating that and doing that than I inspired. But Steve, he's got to be with me
oh, yeah.
on that, and that's it. What it's about. It's about honoring that memory. I do hope same thing when it's time for me to go. I hope my loved ones celebrate what I left behind. I hope they're grateful for the times that we got, not sad for my next door. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm getting. And so I don't want people to feel negative or depressed, like they crash their life. You have honored him in such a big way. I love it. I want to hear about these retreats because can men go, or is this like a women only thing?
No, it's for everybody. I generally get women here, but I have had a couple of couples here that have come and had a couple of retreats, which is lovely. So yeah, it's just we have 3 rooms. Two of them you can get 2 people in, so we can take up to 5 on the retreats. I've renovated the castle from top to bottom. So it's been like a giant canvas for me. As an artist, that's just been like so brilliant and experimental. I've done all the interior design myself. The 3 rooms that we do let out, we've got a Van Gogh room, a Monet room, and a Picasso room. And I've decorated them in the style of the artist and the feel of the artist.
Here we go. I think I was sharing the wrong pages. I've got them now, right?
That's the Monet room. And you can see the water lilies. And each room I've done a mural on one of the walls.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's very calm in the Monet room. And I built each one with its own purpose. There's the Picasso room. It's got cubist furniture. It's very colourful. And then the Van Gogh room, we've got Starry Night and sunflowers in there. So that it's a room of contrasts. So yeah, there's a feel to each room, I suppose. And I usually match the people that are coming with the room that I think is best for them.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. So they come here for 4 days. I do 4-day retreats and 7-day retreats. And we are going to open a can of worms and get them doing things that they never thought they could do creatively.
That's awesome. So, and it reminds me of like the topic of like play learning, like play, like I forget what they call it in the corporate world. But when we do play, when we experience, it's just amazing how much we can learn when we get outside of the logic of it all. And I think you probably do. I can tell you incorporate the logic into it, but what does it take to intuitively, dive into the frou-frou, so to speak, or the woo-woo, as some people would say, like, and also progress at the same time? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, I think it is a really fair question. And I think what you've got to bear in mind here, the mind of a creative is made to be expanded. We're very different from the sort of pure linear thinkers. If you don't understand a creative and you're a linear thinker, you never will, because we're weird. We're the weirdos in the room. We're difficult. We're difficult to live with. We're up and down. We're light and dark. We're night and day. We're very intuitive. But we also connect the dots really, really quickly in lots of abstract ways. And I think when you can learn to embrace all of those things about the creative mind, then actually you can make bigger connections than you ever believed possible. And that's what I do here.
That's fantastic. That reminds me of one of my distant mentors. He doesn't know me, but I love a lot about his videos, his style. It's gone political, and I don't do the political thing, but JP Sears, the redhead that does all of the controversial videos on, and he just makes them so fun. He makes fun of every niche that exists. But his story, if those of you who don't know, is all about finding that confidence to be himself, to make it happen. And it was a huge stepping stone for me, his story, to realize, you know what, I need to, I owe it to myself to dive further into that. And it has made so many wonderful changes in my life for the sake of the relationships who really care about me as a human being, as a person. And yeah, that has also impacted and influenced the power of the visions that we create. I've seen the results create new levels of success, not just for my brand, but also the clients that we serve too. And that's the byproduct of authenticity beyond the dictionary definition that's so popular right now. So, Mandy, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? Because I of course want to maximize the opportunity to just extract the wisdom from your soul and get it out into the world. And of course, we're going to be putting the action steps on the page. That way, any of you who are listening, we'll put the retreat link on there. We'll put the link on there for the event that's coming up, the programs that Mandy has created. And there's also a button on that page. You're listening right now and you're like, I want to be on the stage. I want to share my vision. Then click the button that says be our guest. Apply, come onto our show, and we'll be happy to host you just like we hosted Mandy. But before we officially wrap up, any final thoughts that you have, Mandy?
Yeah, I think so. If you're, if you're listening and you're the creative and you're the one that people don't get, it's not you. It's everybody else in the world. I want you to think about this. You're the normal one and they're the weirdos. Yeah? And it's okay for you to do things your way. In fact, your way is often the right way.
I love that. Absolutely. We are not designed to be sheeple. We are designed to be ourselves. And you've done an excellent job of empowering me with so many ways that I can step into that even further. And I thank you for that. Vision Pros, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. And everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time.